I want to retell the story of adobe walls, but to explain adobe walls, Bent's Fort on the Arkansas has to be talked about first. However, Bent's Fort wouldn't be there if it weren't for the Sante Fe Trail. So here's the story of the Sante Fe Trail. The Spanish Empire, more than 500 years ago, claimed just about all the land in the Western Hemisphere. Other European countries took over areas the Spanish couldn't maintain or defend. Wars and treaties reduced the possessions of New Spain even more, so that by 1819, with the Onis-Adams Treaty, New Spain had what is now Texas, part of Kansas, part of Wyoming, and then all the way west to the Pacific Ocean. Watch my video about how Texas got its borders for that full story. The capital of the New Spain state of Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico was Santa Fe. All trade was regulated by the administrators in Mexico City, which means all trade done in Santa Fe had to be only with people in New Spain and ultimately end up in Mexico City. The United States had gotten closer and closer to Santa Fe the previous 40 years, but Americans were considered trespassing criminals if found in New Spain and treated as such. Despite those negatives, William Becknell left Missouri in 1821 with $30,000 worth of trade goods for Santa Fe. He spent 2 months finding his way, but he made it. He just happened to show up right after Mexico became independent of Spain. Mexico needed money and encouraged trade with anyone they could. A few months later, Mr. Becknell left Santa Fe to return to Missouri by a different route. He came back with over $130,000 in gold and silver and $10,000 in furs. It was a very profitable trip. So profitable that any and everyone that heard about it wanted to give it a try. The Sante Fe Trail was born. Many different paths were taken. The shortest, most direct route followed the Arkansas River over to the Cimarron River for a while, and then a very long dry stretch across what is now the Oklahoma Panhandle into what is now New Mexico and on to Santa Fe. Today, people call this direct route the Cimarron Route. The town of Clayton, New Mexico, which came along after the railroad, is located just off the old trail. To the north of Clayton are Rabbit Ears Mesa and Rabbit Ears Mountain. They are named after the Cheyenne chief Orejo de Conejos, who had misshapen ears from a frostbite injury and was killed in a 1717 fight with the Spanish and buried on top of the larger one. The rabbit ears were the first geologic sign or trail marker. Besides rivers and creeks, the trail goers came across after hundreds of miles of open, rolling grassland prairie. My pictures were taken about 10 miles away and topping a rise almost 20 miles away. Because there is very little water in normal years and no water for very long stretches in dry years, people looked for routes that had dependable water in any year. The answer was to continue along the Arkansas River hundreds of miles further west, then go over Rattan Pass. This is now referred to as the mountain route and was about 10 days longer than the Cimarron route. While not every trip was as profitable as Mr. Becknell's first, there was money to be made. Enough money that wagon trains were moving to and from Santa Fe almost continuously. One result of this was the massive buffalo herd was actually divided in two, those stuck north of the trail and those stuck south. The railroad to Santa Fe was completed in 1880, which ended the trail. A person can follow the general route of the Santa Fe Trail in their vehicle by road. New Mexico marks the route with signs very well.